Right. Good morning, everyone. How are
Morning,
we
good
doing
morning.
today?
Yeah, good, good.
Morning.
Nice.
Hello, good morning.
Good. So, how did you guys find yesterday's session? Any thoughts, any questions, any comments?
Was good. A
Yeah.
lot of what do you call it? Real experience in the
Mm,
matter.
mm. Did you notice that many of the topics that Kenny described,
Yeah,
we have been discussing it in the book uh, about things to consider, challenges, and things like that. Anyone notice
yes,
that?
yes. A lot of it. A lot of it
Mm,
is it's like half the book
mm,
so
mm,
far.
exactly. And we're almost done, actually. This is the second to last, I believe. I believe we finish next week, which is very good. You guys might be able to say that you finished a new programming book. But I have to admit that this chapter, my favorite pages were 80, 81, and 82, which in essence are the pages that I will focus a bit the conversation. And these pages were speaking about the biggest impact on flow.
Mm,
And I thought it was really nice because it touched not only in the concept of mob programming, but also work in general. Andre, if I'm not mistaken, you are an industrial engineer, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was reading this part, I said, okay, maybe to Andre this says a lot of things because from his industrial engineering background, he might
Mhm.
be associated to this concept of flow and reducing working progress and what was the other term that this person resource usage versus flow usage or something like that. I think he used.
Mhm.
So does anyone resource
Mhm.
utilization? Any thoughts on that? Anyone wants to add something about that? Any comments on that perspective?
mm. Yeah, I understand the basics of it. It
Mm,
makes sense. It makes sense. It's you never occupy all your resources because as soon as something goes wrong at some part of the line, everything else behind that part will stop just because of
mm,
it.
mm,
So it makes sense to do it like that.
mm. I want to I want to highlight something very important for all of you, and this is something that is a little bit challenging when doing software development. And that is that in software development you can start planning, but you can do as much analysis as you want. But the truth is that there will always be a number of things that you didn't know you needed to deal with until you actually start the project. And probably for the people who are taking the internship, Andre and Khaled, you will experience this. You have your planning, you have all the things that you want to do, but it's not until you actually start writing your code that you will realize, oh, wait a minute, this is actually a little bit more difficult than what I thought. And even for those who are working on the homework projects of Android, you might say, oh, this app looks actually quite easy, except for the guide, because I give the answer for the guide. But all the other one, hey, this looks actually quite easy. But it's not until you actually start developing the app that you realize, oh, wait a minute,
How do I
this is
move
gonna
from this
be,
fragment to the other?
or this is gonna be more complicated than what I thought. And it happens all the time. So we need to take account into that. Andre, go ahead, please.
Yes, this concept is true. Um, um, in my experience in the previous projects, the improvement in industrial, also now with the internship, it's very difficult to define the time to any task.
Hmm.
Because now I define with EDP, okay, this is a step. So my experience say me trying to say optimist because we have 2 months for the internship,
Mm,
but I'm trying to do the plan for 1 month because I know from my experience it's not take 1 month. It takes more time because maybe we stop next week with the 2 behaviors we need to finish because the problem that. So, but it's very difficult when you made the plan for any project to define, okay, for this specific functionality or behavior, how much I need. This is a very problem when you define the plan and the
it
project.
becomes even harder when you are starting the career. So for example, since you could say Android apps, you have been only doing the ones in the homework, and now you can say that this is the first industry. That is not that much experience, right? So it's like I don't know. Of course, you get better at guessing. I'm using the word guessing. The more apps you build, because at the end of the day, even when you ask me how long does this take, I have to do a guess. I have no idea until I don't start writing the code. Yeah. And if you don't even show me your existing code, I will have no idea. So this guy, for example, he contacted me. He wanted to do something for his app, and he told me, Humberto, how long would such a thing take? I'm like, well, given that you haven't even shown me the source code, I have no idea how long this could take. I can guess it would take this amount of time, but you have to add or take based on a lot of things. And it's not until I start working that I will be able to tell you how long this thing will take. So it's I would say it's the natural part uh, uh, of the field, but there's one way of addressing that, and it's called doing a time box. So for example, um, it's a little bit different when you are a consultant. If you want to, because you're paying or you are charging for your time, and that is time. But in general, for example, for those who are you doing the internship, you say they tell you implement feature A. How long would it take? You say, okay, I will get back to you, let's say in an hour. For a period of 1 hour, you start writing some code. You start not writing the actual code to make the feature, but you start getting into what are the things that are involved to make this happen. After 1 hour, trust me, you will be in a much better position. Even if you don't have a working feature, you will be in a much better position to know, okay, this library, it's simple to use. It shouldn't take that much. I already have it almost set up, this thing. So it should take X amount of time. Again, it's still a guess, but it's a much better guess than what you had prior to the time box. So you say, okay, let's do this time box. Let's see how long it takes. It will be a little experiment. You do not expect to have the feature done in 1 hour, but you're going to get your hands dirty to become familiar into what's actually needed. Munad, go ahead, please.
Let's say, for example, okay, when you start your career as a app developer, so it kind of comes like, okay, when you work on many projects, so it happens that like you have like a package of all the codes. Maybe if you get like, or if you start with a new project, so it can be that you just like copy the code because you already like you write it on another app.
Exactly.
Did that happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time. In fact,
Okay.
for the students who have already started the Android, I always say, look, you're not expected to memorize the code, but you're expected to have a problem solving mentality. As a result, and you will see it in many of the modules when you reach Android, we're in app X, whatever that is. And I say, look, we have already built this stuff. Let's go to the other app that we already use, and let's use that other code as our guide. Of course, you always need to modify because you are in a different context, but it's always the same exactly. And that comes with experience. Like I do it all the time. I say, look, I tell myself, I know I have solved this problem before, and I know I solved this already. Instead of me trying to reinvent the wheel, I'm just going to go to that part of the app or that project where I know I solved that. And of course, I make adaptations. You always need to adapt. But yes, you of course do that. Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I have a folder with bunch of code and I said, now I have to open this folder. No, I just have projects that I have worked on. And I say, I know I have done this. Let me see if it's in this project. And that's where all of you are going to be building your portfolio of projects that will have different stuff. And from there, that will be your kind of guideline for the future. And
It's
you
like
will
a-
continue building from there.
It's like a Lego box. Every time you write a piece of code, it becomes a Lego piece that you have, and then you,
In
whenever
your
you need it, you
toolbox.
just go there. It's there.
Exactly. Correct.
It's there.
Correct.
You don't need to remember what is in the box. You just need to remember that that box does this and it works like this. And then when you have the same kind of problem, oh, this
You go
works.
there. Exactly. Andre, you have the hand raised?
Yeah, the another situation is when you made the plan, the steps, when you have in the dashboard all the steps you needed. After that, you need to go behind you and look again, because sometimes you need to play like the puzzle. Oh, the second step, maybe I need first the second, so you need to change, because
Exactly.
otherwise you will get much problems in the later.
Exactly, and that's part of you learn as you start developing. What do I mean? You learn more about the project as you start developing the project. Prior to the project, you have assumptions, you have guesses, you have hypotheses on how things are going to go. But until you start working and writing code, is that you will realize, and it happens everywhere. It happens to me. It doesn't matter what level you are. It will always happen. Every time I need to release something new to the students, I have an assumption, I have a theory or a hypothesis on how I think the students are going to react to the new whatever it is that I'm releasing. And it's not until I actually release it that I realize, okay, I need to make adjustments on whatever that is. Writing software, creating a new video, whatever it is. You always learn as you actually do it. But then that brings us to this concept of work in progress, doing too much. You have to be careful in the education. I mean, there's two perspectives, because I'm going to speak about software development. You might be, as an example, in your internships, and you say, okay, we have, as an example, 20 features to complete. But in the team, you are two, and you have 5 work in progress. 5 work in progress stuff for 2 people. Why is there so much stuff being work in progress? It is impossible that you are working on 5 things at the same time. So it feels that you're doing progress, but you're not really doing progress. And this goes to everyone, but mostly to both Andre and Khaled that are already in the internship. You are going to be given a list of stuff to do. Do not make the mistake of saying, okay, let's start with these 5 things at the same time. No, you start one and you do not move on to the other one until you finish that thing. Until you finish that thing. And in that way, you are making progress. Telling the boss, yeah, we're working on A, B, C, D, that is not progress. That is the illusion of progress. Progress is saying we're working in A and B. We expect to have this by the end of this week, and we're going to make it happen. You finish, users can start using that A and B. The week after comes, we're only going to work in C and D. You make it happen, you release it, and then you move on. That is work in progress. And you want to reduce as much work in progress as possible. I do not start a new stuff until I haven't finished the old one. Not only because I get too confused and too much stress, but also because it's just an illusion of progress. And at the end, things don't go out the correct way. Andre, go ahead, please.
Yes, this is the concept I have experienced 2 days ago with Edwin. We discussed about that. Humberto know what I mean. I say, Edwin, look, we don't need to think about the permissions, camera, image.
Exactly.
We left this for the lab. Start, we play with the database. Put something, testing room, trying to make the app work just with the test, with the simple description. That's it.
I want everyone to think about an app as whenever you imagine you're moving from a new apartment from an old apartment to a new one, okay? And you have a bunch of boxes. It can be really overwhelming having to organize the entire apartment when you have moved. I guess everyone here at some point or another has moved, so everyone knows what I mean. Yeah. Now, there are 2 philosophies on how you can see that. You can say, okay, let's randomly start doing a little bit in the kitchen, a little bit in the bedroom, a little bit in the bathroom. That is a lot of work in progress. That is what you feel you're doing progress, but at the end of the day, your kitchen is half empty. Your bathroom doesn't even have towels. You don't have a mattress in your room. I think everything is a disaster. My philosophy when moving or when doing this is you say, okay, let's start by the most important one and the most risky one. In the context of the house, that's either the kitchen or the bedroom, because you need to sleep somewhere and you need to cook somewhere. So you take one of those. You start the kitchen and you forget about the rest. If you have a bunch of boxes, move all that stuff everywhere. Do not worry about that stuff. And you do not get out of that kitchen until that kitchen is done. That in Android, that would mean we are in the home screen, the onboarding screens. Yes, we need to implement camera. Yes, we need to implement the database. Yes, we might have to implement a bunch of stuff, but who cares? In this particular moment, we are working in onboarding. Put everything aside, throw everything to some other package, I mean a folder, and just focus on what you're doing. When you move on to the camera, then you say, okay, now I start working with all this stuff. So it's the same. You're done with the kitchen. Now let's go with the bedroom. And you do not get out of that bedroom until everything is fixed. And forget about the chaos that you have on the living room. Who cares? That's not what you're working on in the moment. So think about that analogy. Now, if you're a team, yeah, you can say, okay, if you are your children, and your wife or husband, you can say, okay, you two work on this part, we two work on this part. So of course you have different teams working on different areas. But if it's only one or two people, hey, do not try to do everything at the same time. You're gonna have a half-done app, to be honest. Yeah. And I was gonna say something. Also another thing, based on what you said, Andre. Everyone, this is for everyone, but you should always begin implementing the feature that is the riskiest. I will repeat that. You should always begin implementing the riskiest feature. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's say that I am making a camera app, just as an example. The whole purpose of my app is to take a picture and upload it to the internet. That's the whole purpose of my app. Of course, that's the core, but I want to have like a main screen. I want to have some onboarding and so on. Imagine, just for the sake of the argument, that I spend 4 months working on everything, on the onboarding, like a really nice animations here, really nice. And after 4 months, my application doesn't even take a photo and upload it. What do you think is going to be? How does the user is going to feel? You have spent 4 months developing bunch of BS, and at the end, your app doesn't even do what it's supposed to do. A lot of people like to start from the easy things. Let's do the onboarding. Let's do the main. No, start from the riskiest thing. In the context of the example that I gave, start from what this app is supposed to do, whatever that is. After you have that done, then start going out. That's why I said, if you're moving to a new house, what is the two most important places? The bedroom and the kitchen, because by the end of the day, you need to sleep somewhere. And at the end of the next day, you need to cook somewhere. Yeah. So imagine if you spend the whole day arranging the bathroom and arranging the living room. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. And where are you going to sleep at the end of the day? In the floor. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? So you start from the riskiest place. Yeah, you could sleep in the sofa, but that's not the idea. I guess you get the point that I'm trying to transmit. You start from the riskiest stuff. And of course, the definition of riskiest can be defined in many ways. What is the most difficult thing to do? It could be based on purpose. What is the feature that will allow me to achieve my purpose? Based on requirements, what are the requirements that are the most important for the user? As an example, do they care about onboarding, or do they care about, I don't know, pictures or whatever it is, or the map? It doesn't matter, but you need to identify and start from there, and you go from there. Let me start with Khaled. Khaled, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I have a question. When you start an application, which include many features and many advanced features, where you start? And
again,
a second question is, how do you know how many time you need with a little experience when you talk to the manager who is responsible about it?
Exactly. To answer the first question is this. To understand 20, let's say you have 20 features. A lot of bosses, especially if they're not developers, or any boss to be honest, they say, hey, I want everything, especially if it's free job. I wanted everything. Do it everything, yeah? I'm sorry, I cannot do everything. So the first question is, let's prioritize. We need to begin by prioritizing these requirements. Now, I have a question for everyone. Who is responsible for prioritizing? The developer or you could say, the domain expert? Who do you think is responsible for prioritizing that stuff?
I think them.
The domain
okay.
expert.
The domain expert, yeah.
It's a combination of both. I mean, the developer needs to be able to give some input, but at the end of the day, the domain expert, that what you would call the project owner, that person, he or she is the one that is connected to the client, or closest to the client. He or she knows what are the needs of the client. He, better than anyone else, should know what is the order in which things should be implemented. So that's the first step, Khaled. You need to speak to the supervisor, the project owner, whoever you want to call it, the boss. And he or she needs to design from all this 20 stuff, what is the most important, and do. Together, you specify everything. And saying everything is important is not an option. Nothing is equally important. And it's also important to differentiate between important and urgent. You can have an important task and I can have an urgent task. So for example, I have a lot of important things to do, but none of them are urgent. But if right now I fall and I break my head, suddenly I have an urgency. You see what I mean? There's a huge difference between important task and urgent task, and they are not the same thing. So anyways, you need to begin by what's the most important, and saying that everything is important is not an option. You have to put a number into all of these things. That's the first thing. Then, now that you know the order, you have to say, okay, how long would all of this stuff take? You have two options. Either pure coincidence, I have done this before, this should take 2 or 3 days. Or as I said, you guys need to do a time box. You say, okay, we're going to investigate for 1 hour. If I had to do this, how long this would take. And for 1 hour, you time box 1 hour and you say, let me start looking into this. And for 1 hour, you do what you need to do. Again, you're not going to be done by the hour, but you're going to be in a much better position to address the question. So going in your example, Khaled, if someone asks you, how long would it take to connect all these cables to all this different equipment? You might say, look, I don't know, but give me 1 hour. Let me at least look at the equipment. Let me see what are the cables. I will not be done, but let me a little bit, at least get my hands dirty. I will be in a much better position to tell you how long it would take me to set up all this equipment. You see what I mean? That's the second approach. So you do need to, all of you need to involve the domain expert in the decision-making process. There's a reason why he's the domain expert or the product owner, because he has that knowledge about what's important, where should we begin, what's the things. And you, the developer, from your experience, regardless if it's short, you have to say, look, I think we should maybe do some adjustments here because this feature depends on this feature, and then you provide the programming input. So he might say A, B, C, and D is the order. And you say, okay, that's good, but let's do A, B, D, and then C, because you say there's, from a programmatic point of view, some dependency. So you do that input. So, but both of you, the domain expert, the developers, need to work together to decide how to move forward. Not only the domain expert and not only the programmer, because if the programmer is the one that makes all the decisions, probably they will start doing things that are not relevant for the end user. And if the domain expert who has no experience in programming is the one that decides everything, probably they are going to make some expectations that are unrealistic from a programmatic point of view. So it has to be both. And it's a process. You take it 1 week at a time. You say, for this week, we're going to focus on A, B, and C, and only A, B, and C. And you do not disturb anything else for that week. The week after, either you continue with A, B, and C, or you say, okay, what's the goal of this week? So you divide it in little chunks. of progress. Does it answer the question, Khaled? Does it answer?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Andre, go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to add something with the question there, Khaled, is when it's very important also, in example, my case, analyze your knowledge and analyze, okay, I have all these features for the app. Okay, the camera is more important, but the example in my case and the EDB, we see, okay, the connect with the database, because never working with
riskiest.
database is a risk. So we need to,
Exactly.
I say, Evin, forget about the camera. First, we need to, the app work, connect with database, because we don't understand nothing, zero about the database. So I know we take long time to this task in the app.
Exactly. That's correct. So in your case, for Andres' application, he already said it. The database connection is the riskiest. Why? Here's the key. Why is it the riskiest? Because in their context, they have never done it before. They have to figure out how the hell to do this thing. So from their perspective, that is the riskiest. So yes, you should begin by that one, because the camera, that's the easiest of stuff. But if you get that done, even if you take, it's a 2-month internship, let's say that it took you 1 month to do the connection to the database, but it's working perfectly. The other month is going to go significantly quicker, because now you have the easy stuff to do. You see what I mean? So
yeah,
that is my philosophy. That is, you should start with the riskiest, so that also you tell the boss early, hey boss, this thing is not possible. We cannot connect to this database, and then they can make any adjustments that is necessary.
Yes.
I remember I saw or I read, this has nothing to do with programming, but the idea is the same. Do you know the latest movie? I don't know if you have seen it. I have not seen it, but it doesn't matter. Mission Impossible, from Tom Cruise. Well, you know he's famous for doing all this bunch of crazy stunts. I read, I don't know if it's true or not, but even if it's not, I feel it's accurate. They said that when they started filming the movie, the very first shoot that they did was the riskiest stunt in the movie, because they said that stunt was the very, very important. And they said, if this thing cannot go through, there's no point in doing any movie. So instead of them doing all the beauty and the kisses and all that stuff, they started with the hardest thing. Because if that thing didn't work, what's the purpose of doing all of this? All of this is wasted. So that's what I meant by starting with the riskiest thing first. You will understand, you will know, make adjustments early, because camera, for example, that's easy. All the other stuff, that's easy. But yeah, so keep that in mind, and work in progress. And I recommend to all of you, when you're working on software, going back to this work in progress, divide. You have 2 months as an example. Do not think about it as I have 2 months, because there's a theory that the more time you think you have, you're just going to waste more time. So you say, I have 2 months, it's going to be easy. No, divide that 2 months into actual weeks. I mean, that sounds stupid because we already do it. But instead of thinking I have 2 months to do 20 tasks, you say I have 1 week to do 2 tasks. And then you know that by the end of that week, you have that done. The week after comes, and you say, okay, now I'm going to focus on 3 tasks. And you don't focus on anything other than that. Because if you use the mindset, it's a psychological thing. Okay, it makes no sense, but it's a psychological thing, and it's true. If you say I have 2 months to do 20 things, probably you're going to waste more time if you say, this week I have 2 things, next week I have 2 things. Probably at the end, the effect is the same, like you accomplish the same thing. But psychologically speaking, you're going to waste more time, because you say, I have 2 months, I'll leave that, I can go a bit slower. No, make your weeks, strictly divide what you want to do per week, limit the amount of work in progress, and you do not move to the next thing until you finish whatever it is that you established. Okay, it's my recommendation. And you're going to see how the flow, speaking about flows, is going to be better. And you're going to be in a much better position to understand where you are, what you're doing, what's missing, and what are the challenges on the way, basically.
Steady is faster. That's the the motto.
Exactly. And again, remember, you have to speak to domain experts. Them better than anyone, or they are the ones in the best position to determine what's important. And a lot of people, especially who are not programmers, and if they are boss or something like that, they think, okay, I will let the programmers decide. No, don't let the programmers decide. They might be the experts at programming, but they're not experts in your company. They're not experts in your domain. So you need to collaborate together with them. So this goes both to Khaled and Enrique, Andre. You have to do that. And in the future, it will go to Enrique, of course, and Murat when they go to the internship. But really nice, really good. I mean, again, we didn't speak much about mob, but I felt these 3 pages, as I mentioned, are very, very important and very relevant to what almost half of you here in the conversation are doing. So any questions, any thoughts, anything in particular?
No.
No? Good. So Khaled, Andre, you guys good shape to know how to approach the coming weeks. I mean, your internship just started maybe this week, I believe. So you're in a good shape to do all those adjustments and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining today. Hopefully you found the conversation good, and I will stay in touch with all of you then.
Okay.
Have a nice
Thank
one.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.